2 weeks after the encounter with the Consortium military, Jake was beginning to see how bad the situation in the galaxy had become. Every station they visited had stories of families separated by closed borders, medical supplies stuck in bureaucratic delays, and small colonies being abandoned by their governments. "Captain, we just got a distress call from the Epsilon mining station," Maria reported from her communication station. "They're running out of food and medical supplies. The Consortium transport that was supposed to deliver them never showed up." Jake looked at their current cargo manifest. They were carrying industrial equipment to the Beta sector, but it wasn't urgently needed. The mining station, however, had 3,000 people who would start going hungry within days. "Change course for Epsilon Station," Jake decided. "We'll drop off some of our emergency supplies and see what else we can do to help." "Sir, we don't have enough supplies for 3,000 people," Pete pointed out. "Then we'll find other ships to help," Jake replied. "There have to be other traders in this sector who can spare something." Lisa had been listening to this conversation. From the doorway, "You're going to help complete strangers, even though it will cost you money and delay your delivery." "Those people need help," Jake said simply. "If we don't do something, they might die. Money isn't worth more than human lives." Over the next several hours, Jake used his ship's communication system to contact every trader, transport, and cargo vessel in the area. He explained the situation at Epsilon Station and asked if anyone could contribute supplies. "This is Captain Rodriguez of the merchant vessel Star Dancer," came one response. "We can spare some food rations and medical supplies." "Where should we meet?" "Captain Singh of the transport ship Kashmir here," said another voice. "We're carrying extra water purification tablets. The station can have them." By the end of the day, Jake had organized a convoy of 7 ships, all carrying supplies for the mining station. Lisa watched with amazement as ship after ship agreed to help, even though most of them would lose money by doing so. "How did you convince them all to help?" Lisa asked. "I didn't have to convince them," Jake replied. "When people hear about others in trouble, most of them want to help. They just need someone to organize the effort." When they reached Epsilon Station, Jake found the situation even worse than he had expected. The station's administrator, a tired-looking woman named Carol Stevens, explained that they had been forgotten by the Consortium government. "They promised us regular supply runs," Carol said. "But since the Empress disappeared, no one seems to care about the outer mining stations anymore. We're too small and too far away to matter." "You matter to us," Jake said, "and we're going to make sure you get the help you need." Jake spent the next 3 days organizing the distribution of supplies and helping the station's engineers repair their broken equipment. He also used his contacts to arrange for regular supply runs from independent traders. "You saved our lives," Carol told him as they prepared to leave. "How can we ever repay you?" "Just remember this when you encounter someone else who needs help," Jake replied. "Pass it on." As they left Epsilon Station, Lisa was quiet for a long time. Finally, she spoke up. "You're creating something, aren't you? A network of traders who help each other," Jake nodded. "The Consortium government used to coordinate supply runs and emergency aid. But now that they're falling apart, someone has to fill the gap. Independent traders know these space lanes better than anyone. We can help each other and help the people who need it." Over the following weeks, Jake's informal network grew larger. Traders would contact him when they found colonies in need, and he would coordinate relief efforts. Word spread quickly through the independent trading community, and soon Jake was getting calls from across the galaxy. "Captain Morrison, this is the freighter Blue Star," came a message one morning. "We've got a medical emergency on the farming world of New Eden. They need antibiotics, but the Consortium won't let medical supplies through their blockade." Jake immediately got on the communication system. "This is Jake Morrison to all ships in the New Eden sector. We have a medical emergency that needs immediate attention. Who can help?" Within hours, 3 ships had volunteered to run the blockade and deliver medical supplies. Jake coordinated the mission, making sure the ships avoided consortium patrol routes and reached the planet safely. Lisa watched all of this with growing amazement. "You're doing the job that the consortium government used to do," she said. "But you're doing it better." "We're just helping people," Jake replied. "It's not about politics or territory. It's about making sure everyone has what they need to survive." "But how do you coordinate all of this?" Lisa asked. "How do you keep track of who needs what and which ships can help?" Jake showed her the simple system he had developed. "I keep a list of traders who want to help, and I track which colonies need supplies. When someone calls for help, I match them with the closest available ship." "That's brilliant," Lisa said. "And it's so simple that anyone can understand it." "The best solutions usually are simple," Jake replied. "Complicated systems break down when people are under pressure. Simple systems work even when everything else is falling apart." Lisa began to help Jake with the coordination work. Her knowledge of trade routes and supply chains made her invaluable, and she had a talent for negotiating with difficult people. "You're really good at this," Jake told her one evening as they reviewed the day's rescue missions. "Have you considered that you might have been a coordinator or administrator in your previous life?" Lisa smiled sadly. "Maybe I was, but I'm not sure I was very good at it." "What makes you say that?" "I think I got too caught up in the politics and forgot about the people," Lisa replied. "Watching you work has reminded me what leadership is really supposed to be about." Jake looked at her with curiosity. "What do you mean?" "You don't lead by giving orders," Lisa explained. "You lead by example. People follow you because they trust you and because they see that you genuinely care about doing the right thing." "I'm not leading anyone," Jake protested. "I'm just trying to help." "That's exactly what I mean," Lisa said. "You don't think of yourself as a leader, but look what you've accomplished. You've created a network that's helping millions of people across the galaxy. And you did it just by being kind and asking others to help." Jake thought about her words. It was true that his network had grown far beyond what he had originally imagined. Independent traders were now coordinating relief efforts in dozens of star systems, and colonies that had been abandoned by their governments were getting the supplies they needed. "Maybe you're right," Jake said, "but I still don't think of it as leadership. I think of it as just doing what needs to be done." "That's what real leadership is," Lisa replied. "Not seeking power for its own sake, but using whatever influence you have to make things better for everyone." That night, Jake received a message that made him realize how big his network had become. "Captain Morrison, this is Admiral Fletcher of the Earth Defense Force. I've been hearing about your relief efforts, and I wanted to thank you. You're doing more to maintain stability in the outer sectors than all of our official aid programs combined." Jake was surprised to hear from such a high-ranking military officer. "Admiral, I'm just trying to help people who need it." "I know," Admiral Fletcher replied. "And that's exactly why it's working. You're not trying to control anyone or gain political advantage. You're just solving problems and helping people. That's something the galaxy needs more of right now." After the call ended, Jake sat quietly in his captain's chair, thinking about what the Admiral had said. He had never intended to become any kind of leader. He had just wanted to help people in need. But as he looked at the messages pouring in, from across the galaxy, traders offering to help, colonies expressing gratitude, and officials asking for his advice, Jake realized that Lisa was right. He had become a leader, not by seeking power, but by consistently doing what he believed was right. And somehow, his simple approach was working better than all the complex political systems that were falling apart around them. 3 days after leaving Titan Colony, Jake was woken up by the ship's alarm system. He quickly put on his clothes and rushed to the bridge, where he found Pete staring at the scanner display with a worried expression. "What's the problem?" Jake asked. "We've got company," Pete replied, pointing at the screen. 3 large ships just appeared out of hyperspace. "They're heading straight for us." Jake looked at the display and felt his heart sink. The ships were massive military vessels, much larger than his small cargo freighter. Their design was sleek and threatening, and they were moving fast. "Can you identify them?" Jake asked. "They're consortium military ships," Maria said from her communication station. "They're sending us a message now." "Put it through," Jake ordered. The main screen filled with the image of a stern-looking alien officer. He had pale gray skin and large black eyes, and he wore the dark blue uniform of the consortium military. "This is Commander Zark of the consortium. Enforcement fleet," the officer said in a cold voice. "You will prepare to be boarded for inspection. Any attempt to resist will result in the destruction of your vessel." Jake felt his stomach tighten. He had heard that the consortium military was becoming more aggressive since the Empress disappeared, but he had never expected to encounter them personally. "This is Captain Morrison of the New Horizon," Jake replied. "We're an independent trader carrying medical supplies. What's this about?" "All ships in this sector are being searched for contraband and fugitives," Commander Zark replied. "You will comply with our inspection or face the consequences." The communication ended, and Jake turned to his crew. "Where's Lisa?" he asked. "In her quarters," Tom replied. "Should I get her?" Jake thought quickly. He didn't know exactly what the consortium military was looking for, but something told him that Lisa might be in danger if they found her. Her mysterious past and advanced technology made her a potential target. "No," Jake decided. "Pete, take Lisa to the maintenance section and help her hide. Make sure she stays quiet no matter what happens." "Captain, are you sure about this?" Pete asked. "If they find out we're hiding someone, it could make things worse for all of us." "I'm not letting them take Lisa without knowing what they want with her," Jake replied. "She's part of this crew now, and we protect our own." Pete nodded and quickly left the bridge. Jake watched the consortium ships getting closer and tried to think of a plan. The New Horizon was no match for military vessels, so fighting was not an option. You would have to rely on his wits and hope that the inspection would be brief. 20 minutes later, Jake watched as consortium soldiers entered his cargo bay. They were armed with energy weapons and wore heavy armor that made them look intimidating. Commander Zark led the group, his black eyes scanning everything with suspicious intensity. "Captain Morrison," Commander Zark said as he approached Jake, "I need to see your ship's records, crew manifests, and cargo documentation." Jake handed over the requested files. "As you can see, we're carrying medical supplies to the outer colonies. Nothing illegal or dangerous." Commander Zark studied the documents carefully. "Your crew manifest shows 4 people, but I'm told there are 5 life signs on this ship. Where is the 5th person?" Jake felt sweat on his forehead, but he kept his voice steady. "I don't know what you're talking about. There are only 4 of us here." "Don't lie to me, Captain," Commander Zark said with a threatening tone. "Our scanners are very accurate. There is definitely a 5th person on this ship." "Your scanners must be malfunctioning," Jake replied. "Feel free to search the ship if you want, but you won't find anyone else." Commander Zark ordered his soldiers to search every room and storage area. Jake watched nervously as they moved through the ship, knowing that Lisa was hidden somewhere in the maintenance section. He hoped Pete had found a good hiding spot. "Captain," one of the soldiers reported, "we found something unusual." The soldiers showed Commander Zark the remains of Lisa's escape pod, which they had stored in the cargo bay. The commander examined the advanced technology with great interest. "This is not human technology," Commander Zark said. "Where did you get this?" "We found it floating in space," Jake replied truthfully. "It was badly damaged, and we brought it aboard to see if we could learn anything from it. Was there anyone inside this pod?" Commander Zark asked. Jake hesitated for a moment. "It was empty when we found it." Commander Zark studied Jake's face carefully. "You're lying, Captain. This pod shows signs of recent use. Someone was definitely inside it." "I don't know what to tell you," Jake said. "We found an empty pod and brought it aboard. That's all." The search continued for another hour. Jake's crew was questioned separately, but they all gave the same story. Pete and Tom both claimed they had only seen 4 people on the ship, while Maria insisted that the life sign readings must be wrong. Finally, Commander Zark gathered his soldiers in the cargo bay. "Captain Morrison, I know you're hiding something. The person we're looking for is extremely dangerous and wanted for crimes against the consortium." "I told you, there's no one else here," Jake replied. "Let me be clear about something," Commander Zark said. "The consortium is going through a difficult time right now. We have many enemies, and we cannot afford to take chances. If you're found to be helping fugitives, your ship will be destroyed and your crew imprisoned." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "Are you threatening us?" "I'm giving you a warning," Commander Zark replied. "The consortium's patience is limited. If you encounter any suspicious individuals, you will report them immediately. Is that understood?" "Understood," Jake said, though he had no intention of following that order. Commander Zark and his soldiers finally left the New Horizon. Jake waited until their ships were gone before calling out to Pete and Lisa. "You can come out now," Jake said. "They're gone." Pete emerged from a maintenance shaft, followed by Lisa. She looked shaken by the experience, and Jake noticed that her hands were trembling slightly. "Are you okay?" Jake asked her. "I'm fine," Lisa replied, but her voice was unsteady. "Thank you for not telling them about me." "What did they want with you?" Jake asked gently. Lisa looked at him for a long moment before answering. "I think they believe I'm someone I'm not. The consortium is looking for people they think might be connected to the Empress's disappearance." "But you said you only worked with her a long time ago," Jake said. "Why would they suspect you?" "Because anyone who was close to her is now considered a potential threat," Lisa replied. "The new leadership doesn't trust anyone who might have been loyal to the Empress." Jake began to understand the situation better. "So they're hunting down anyone who might know what happened to her, or anyone who might try to challenge their authority," Lisa said. "The consortium is scared, and scared people do dangerous things." That evening, Jake called a meeting with his crew. He explained what had happened and why he had decided to hide Lisa from the consortium soldiers. "Captain, you took a big risk," Tom said. "If they had found her, we could all be in serious trouble." "I know," Jake replied, "but I couldn't let them take her without knowing what they wanted. Lisa is part of our crew now, and we don't abandon our own." "What if they come back?" Maria asked. "They seem pretty sure there was someone else on the ship." "Then we'll deal with it when it happens," Jake said. "But I won't turn over an innocent person to people who might hurt her." Pete nodded in agreement. "The captain's right. We stick together, no matter what." Over the next few days, Jake noticed that Lisa seemed different. She was more careful about being seen, and she often looked worried when they passed other ships. She also started paying even more attention to news reports about the consortium's crisis. "Things are getting worse," Lisa said one evening as they watched a report about riots on several consortium worlds. "People are losing faith in the government's ability to maintain order." "What do you think will happen?" Jake asked. "I don't know," Lisa replied. "But I'm starting to think that the consortium's problems are bigger than just one missing person. The whole system seems to be falling apart." Jake watched the news with growing concern. He was beginning to realize that the galaxy was heading toward a period of chaos and conflict. And somehow, he and his crew were caught in the middle of it all. "We'll figure it out," Jake said, putting a comforting hand on Lisa's shoulder. "Whatever happens, we'll face it together." Lisa looked at him with an expression of gratitude and something else he couldn't quite identify. "Thank you, Jake, for everything." That night, as Jake lay in his bunk, he wondered what other surprises the future might hold. He had the feeling that their encounter with the consortium military was only the beginning of their troubles. The New Horizon finally reached Titan Colony after 3 weeks of travel. Jake was relieved to see the familiar docking stations and bustling trade platforms. The colony needed the medical supplies badly, and Jake felt good knowing they had helped save lives by getting the cargo there safely. Take the day off, Jake told his crew as they finished unloading the supplies. We've all earned some rest, and I need to find our next job anyway. Lisa walked beside Jake as they entered the colony's main marketplace. She had been quiet during the docking procedure, and Jake noticed she seemed nervous about being around. So many people. You okay? Jake asked her. You seem worried about something. I'm fine, Lisa replied, but she kept looking around as if she expected trouble. It's just been a long time since I've been in a crowded place like this. The marketplace was busy with traders from all over the galaxy. Jake saw humans, but also many alien species he recognized from his years of trading. There were the tall, blue-skinned Tarians with their musical voices, the small but strong Vortons, who were excellent engineers, and the peaceful Zephyrians, who grew the best food in known space. Jake led Lisa to his favorite cafe, a small place run by an elderly human woman named Betty. The cafe was a good spot to hear news and find information about trade opportunities. Jake Morrison, you old space dog, Betty called out when she saw them. Haven't seen you in months. How's business? Can't complain, Jake replied with a smile. Betty, I'd like you to meet Lisa. She's traveling with us for a while. Betty looked at Lisa with interest. Pleasure to meet you, dear. Any friend of Jake's is welcome here. What can I get you both? They ordered coffee and sandwiches, then found a quiet table in the corner. Jake pulled out his data pad to check for available jobs while Lisa sat quietly, listening to the conversations around them. At the next table, two alien traders were having an intense discussion. One was a Carrion with dark blue skin and silver hair, while the other was a short, stocky Vorton with gray skin and large eyes. The situation is getting worse every day, the Carrion was saying. Without proper leadership, the whole system is falling apart. I heard that 3 more worlds have declared independence, the Vorton replied. The outer colonies don't trust anyone anymore. Jake looked up from his data pad. Excuse me, but I couldn't help overhearing. What situation are you talking about? The Carrion looked at Jake with concern. You haven't heard? The Galactic Trade Consortium is in crisis. Empress Lydia Voss disappeared almost a month ago, and no one knows what happened to her. Jake frowned. He had heard the Galactic Trade Consortium, of course. It was a huge organization that controlled trade between hundreds of worlds. But he didn't know much about its internal politics. Who's Empress Lydia Voss? Jake asked. She's the ruler of the consortium, the Vorton explained. Has been for almost 15 years. She controls trade routes, settles disputes between worlds, and keeps the peace in over 200 star systems. The Carrion nodded gravely. Without her, everything is chaos. Different groups are fighting to take control, and honest traders like us are caught in the middle. Jake glanced at Lisa and noticed that she had gone completely pale. Her hands were shaking slightly, and she was staring at the table as if she couldn't bear to look up. What kind of person was she? Jake asked, still watching Lisa's reaction. Fair, but tough, the Vorton replied. She made decisions quickly and stuck to them. Some people didn't like her methods, but she kept the peace and made sure trade flowed smoothly. The problem is, the Carrion continued, she had many enemies. Some think she was assassinated. Others believe she just ran away. But without her, the consortium is breaking apart. Lisa suddenly stood up from the table. I need some air, she said quietly, then walked quickly toward the exit. Jake excused himself and followed her outside. He found Lisa standing by the docking platform, looking out at the stars. She seemed to be struggling with some strong emotion. Lisa, what's wrong? Jake asked gently. You looked upset back there. Lisa was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. The Empress they were talking about, I knew her. Jake was surprised. You knew Empress Lydia Voss? We worked together a long time ago, Lisa said, still not looking at him. She was ... She was a good person who tried to do the right thing. But the job was hard, and she had to make difficult choices. What happened to her? Jake asked. I don't know, Lisa replied, but something in her voice suggested she wasn't telling him everything. Maybe she just got tired of all the responsibility, being in charge of so many lives. It's not easy. Jake could see that Lisa was deeply troubled by this news. He put a gentle hand on her shoulder. Whatever happened, I'm sure she did her best. Sometimes that's all anyone can do. Lisa looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Do you really believe that? That doing. Your best is enough, even when people suffer because of your decisions. I think, Jake said carefully, that anyone who takes on the responsibility of leading others is bound to make mistakes. What matters is whether they learn from those mistakes and keep trying to do better. But what if the mistakes cost lives? Lisa asked. What if people die because of choices you made? Jake could hear the pain in her voice. He wondered what had happened in Lisa's past to make her think this way. Everyone who leads has to live with hard choices, he said. But if you're trying to help people, and you're doing your best with the information you have, then you can't blame yourself for every bad outcome. Lisa was quiet for a while, thinking about Jake's words. The Empress had many advisors, she said finally. People who were supposed to help her make good decisions. But in the end, she had to choose by herself. That's what leadership is, Jake replied. Making the hard choices so others don't have to. They walked back toward the ship in comfortable silence. Jake could sense that Lisa was still troubled by the news about the Empress, but he didn't want to push her to talk about it. He had learned that Lisa would share things when she was ready. Over the next few days, Jake noticed that Lisa was paying close attention to news reports out the consortium's crisis. She would watch the news feeds intently, and he often caught her looking worried or sad. The situation is getting worse, Lisa said one evening as they watched the report about fighting between different faction groups. People are suffering because there's no stable leadership, Jake nodded. It's always the ordinary people who pay the price when governments fall apart. The powerful folks will be fine, but regular families just trying to make a living get caught in the crossfire. What would you do? Lisa asked suddenly. If you were in charge of something that big, how would you handle it? Jake thought about it. I'd try to remember that every decision affects real people. And I'd surround myself with people who would tell me the truth, even when it's hard to hear. Even if telling the truth meant criticizing your decisions. Lisa asked. Especially then, Jake replied. A leader who can't handle criticism is a leader who's going to make bad choices. Lisa smiled slightly. That's a wise approach. But it's harder to do than it sounds, especially when you're under pressure. I'm sure it is, Jake agreed. But I think the key is to never forget why you're doing the job in the first place. If you're leading to help people, then you have to be willing to listen to them, even when they're unhappy with you. That night, Lisa lay in her bunk thinking about Jake's words. She had been the Empress for 15 years, and she had tried to do her best. But somewhere along the way, she had started making decisions based on what was politically safe rather than what was right. Jake, over the past few weeks, had reminded her of something important. True leadership wasn't about having power over others. It was about using whatever power you had to make life better for the people you served. As she drifted off to sleep, Lisa began to wonder if there might be a way to fix the mess she had left behind. But first, she needed to understand more about how Jake Morrison managed to lead so effectively without even trying. Lisa had been aboard the New Horizon for 2 weeks now, and Jake found himself enjoying her company more than he had expected. She was quiet at first, but gradually began to join conversations with the crew. There was something about her that made everyone feel comfortable, even though she rarely talked about her past. Lisa, would you like to help me with the navigation charts? Jake asked one morning. They were sitting in the ship's common area, sharing breakfast. Jake had noticed that Lisa seemed to understand star charts better than most people, even though she claimed to have no formal training. I would like that, Lisa replied, looking up from her coffee. She had been wearing spare clothes from the ship's emergency supplies. But somehow she made even the plain gray jumpsuit look elegant. Though I should warn you, I might not be much help. Jake laughed. You've already helped more than you know. Yesterday, you spotted that asteroid field before our scanners did. That saved us hours of travel time. Lisa smiled, but Jake noticed she looked uncomfortable whenever he praised her abilities. She always tried to change the subject or make it seem like her help was nothing special. Over the next few days, Jake began to understand more about Lisa's character. She was incredibly smart, but she never made others feel stupid. When Tom Baker was having trouble with the engine repairs, Lisa quietly suggested a solution that worked perfectly. When Maria Santos was worried about her sick daughter back on Earth, Lisa listened for hours and offered gentle advice. She's different from most people, Pete told Jake one evening when they were alone on the bridge. I can't put my finger on it, but she acts like someone who's used to being in charge. Jake had noticed the same thing. Lisa had a way of speaking that made people want to listen to her. Even when she was just asking for directions to the bathroom, she sounded like she was used to giving orders. But she never actually tried to tell anyone what to do. Maybe she was an officer on her ship, Jake suggested. That would explain why. She knows so much about navigation and space travel. The next morning, Jake was woken up by the ship's alarm system. He quickly got dressed and ran to the bridge, where he found Pete looking worried. What's happening? Jake asked. We've got a problem with the food storage system, Pete replied. The cooling unit failed during the night. Most of our fresh food is spoiled. Jake felt his stomach drop. They were still 3 days away from the colonies, and they had enough emergency rations for maybe 2 days. The crew would have to go hungry, and they wouldn't be able to help anyone else they might encounter. How much money do we have left? Jake asked Maria, who handled the ship's finances. About 800 credits, Maria replied. But that's supposed to last us until we get paid for this delivery. Jake thought about it. There was a small trading station about half a day away. They could buy food there, but it would use up most of their money. That meant the crew wouldn't get paid much this month, and they wouldn't be able to afford repairs if something else broke. Set course for Trading Station Alpha, Jake decided. We'll buy what we need there. Captain, that's going to use up almost all our money, Pete warned. Are you sure about this? The crew needs to eat, Jake replied. We'll figure out the rest later. Lisa had been listening to this conversation from the doorway. As they changed course toward the trading station, she quietly approached Jake. Captain, I couldn't help but overhear your conversation, she said. I have some credits saved up. I'd like to contribute to buying food for the crew. Jake was surprised. Lisa, you don't have to do that. We'll manage. You saved my life, Lisa replied. This is the least I can do, Jake shook his head. We're not taking your money. You're a guest here, and you're going to need those credits when we find a way to get you home. Lisa looked like she wanted to argue, but she could see that Jake had made up his mind. Instead, she found other ways to help. When they reached the trading station, she came with Jake to buy supplies. Her knowledge of different foods and storage methods helped them get better deals from the alien traders. How do you know so much about interstellar trade? Jake asked as they walked back to the ship with their purchases. Lisa hesitated for a moment. I used to work in ... supply management. You learn about different markets and how to negotiate. Jake accepted this explanation, though he noticed that Lisa often paused before answering questions about her past. He figured she had been through something traumatic and didn't want to push her to talk about it. Back on the ship, Lisa proved to be helpful in other ways. She volunteered to help with cooking, and the crew was amazed at how good the food tasted. She also helped with cleaning and maintenance work, never complaining about the boring tasks. You don't have to do all this work, Jake told her one evening. You're still recovering from your ordeal. I want to help, Lisa replied. Everyone on this ship has made me feel welcome. It's only fair that I contribute. Jake was impressed by Lisa's attitude. Most passengers would have just stayed in their quarters and waited to reach their destination. But Lisa genuinely seemed to care about the crew's welfare. A few days later, they encountered a distress signal from another ship. The vessel was a small family transport that had engine problems. Jake immediately changed course to help them, even though it would delay their delivery to the colonies. "Captain, we're already behind schedule," Pete reminded him. "The colonies are expecting us." "They'll have to wait a little longer," Jake replied. "That family needs help now." Lisa watched as Jake and his crew worked to repair the other ship's engine. Tom Baker spent hours in the cramped engine room, while Maria provided food and medical supplies to the stranded family. Jake coordinated the rescue effort, making sure everyone stayed safe. "Why did you help them?" Lisa asked Jake while they waited for the repairs to be completed. Jake looked at her with surprise. "Because they needed help. That's what people do for each other out here." "But it's costing you time and money," Lisa pointed out. "You could have just reported their location to the authorities and continued on your way." "That family has two small children," Jake replied. "They could have died waiting for an official rescue ship." "I couldn't live with myself if I just left them there." Lisa nodded slowly. She had been watching Jake carefully over the past few weeks, and she was beginning to understand something important about him. He didn't help people because he expected something in return. He helped because it was the right thing to do. The repairs took most of the day, and the family's ship was finally able to continue its journey. The family offered to pay Jake for his help, but he refused to take their money. "Just pass it on," Jake told them. "Help someone else when you get the chance." After the family left, Lisa sat with Jake in the common area. "You're an unusual person, Captain Morrison," she said quietly. "How so?" Jake asked. "Most people in positions of authority use their power to benefit themselves," Lisa replied. "But you use yours to help others, even when it costs you." Jake shrugged. "That's just good sense. If we all looked out for each other, the galaxy would be a better place." Lisa was quiet for a long moment. "Do you really believe that?" "I do," Jake said. "I've seen what happens when people only care about themselves. It leads to suffering and conflict. But when people help each other, amazing things can happen." That night, Lisa lay in her bunk thinking about Jake's words. She had seen many leaders in her time, and most of them talked about helping others, while actually serving their own interests. But Jake was different. He genuinely cared about everyone around him, from his crew to complete strangers. As she drifted off to sleep, Lisa found herself wondering what the galaxy would be like if more people thought the way Jake Morrison did. Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he stared at the navigation screen. The cargo freighter New Horizon had been traveling through space for 3 days now, carrying medical supplies to the outer colonies. It was not an easy job, but someone had to do it. The colonies needed these supplies, and Jake knew that lives depended on getting them there on time. "Captain, we're picking up something strange on the scanners," said Pete Williams, his second in command. Pete had been with Jake for 5 years now, and he was good at his job. He never panicked, which was why Jake trusted him. Jake walked over to Pete's station and looked at the screen. There was a small object floating in space about 2 kilometers away from their ship. It looked like a piece of metal, but the scanners showed it was giving off a weak power signal. "What do you think it is?" Jake asked. "Could be debris from a ship, but the power reading suggests something might still be working inside," Pete replied. "Should we ignore it and keep going?" Jake thought about it. They were already behind schedule, and the colonies were waiting for their supplies. But if someone was in trouble out here, they might die if no one helped them. Jake had always believed that you help people when you can, no matter what the cost. "Let's take a closer look," Jake decided, "but stay alert. We don't know what we're dealing with." As they got closer, Jake could see that the object was actually a small escape pod. It was badly damaged, with burn marks all over its surface. One side was completely torn open, and pieces of metal were floating around it. But the most surprising thing was the design. Jake had never seen anything like it before. Pete, have you ever seen technology like this? Jake asked. Pete shook his head. No, sir. This doesn't look like any human design I know. And it's not from any of the alien races we trade with either. The metal looks different, and those control panels, they're way more advanced than anything we have. Jake studied the pod more carefully. Despite the damage, he could see that whoever built this had technology far beyond what humans currently possess. The whole material seemed to shimmer slightly, and there were symbols carved into the surface that he couldn't read. Captain, I'm detecting a life sign inside, said Maria Santos, their communications officer. It's weak, but definitely there. Looks like one person, unconscious. Jake made his decision quickly. Bring the pod into the cargo bay. We need to get whoever's inside to our medical station. Sir, are you sure about this? Pete asked. We don't know who or what is in there. Could be dangerous. If you were floating in space dying, wouldn't you want someone to help you? Jake replied, We're not leaving anyone to die out here. 20 minutes later, Jake and his crew had managed to get the escape pod into their cargo bay. The pod was even more impressive up close. Despite the damage, Jake could see that it had been built with incredible skill. The materials were unlike anything he had seen, and the technology inside was far more advanced than human engineering. The lock mechanism is different from ours, said Tom Baker, their engineer. But I think I can get it open. It took Tom another 10 minutes to figure out how to open the pod. When the door finally slid open with a soft hiss, Jake saw someone that made him stop and stare. Inside the pod was a woman. She appeared to be human, or at least very close to human. She was unconscious, and her breathing was shallow. She wore clothes that Jake didn't recognize. They looked like they had once been very expensive, but now they were torn and dirty. Her dark hair was tangled, and there were small cuts on her face and hands. She's hurt, but not too badly, said Maria, who had some medical training, mostly just cuts and bruises. But she's been unconscious for a while. We need to get her to our medical bay. Jake carefully lifted the woman from the pod. She was lighter than he expected, and as he carried her, he noticed that her clothes were made from material he had never seen before. It felt smooth and strong, like it was designed to last forever. In the medical bay, Maria cleaned the woman's wounds and checked her vital signs. She's stable now, but she needs rest. I don't know how long she's been in that pod, but she's dehydrated and exhausted. Jake looked at the woman lying on the medical bed. She appeared to be in her early 30s, with fine features and pale skin. Even unconscious and injured, there was something about her that suggested she was used to being in control. Her posture, even while lying down, seemed confident. Did you find any identification? Jake asked Tom, who was examining the escape pod. Nothing, Tom replied. The pod's computer system is completely fried. I can't get any information from it at all. And there's nothing in her pockets except this. Tom showed Jake a small device that looked like it might be some kind of communication tool. But like everything else, it was damaged and not working. What about her ship? Jake asked. The pod had to come from somewhere. Pete checked the scanners. Again, I'm not picking up any debris or other ships in the area. If there was a larger vessel, it's either gone or completely destroyed. Jake stood by the medical bed, looking at the mysterious woman. She was clearly not from any world he knew about. Her technology was far too advanced, and her clothes suggested she came from a wealthy civilization. But who was she, and what had happened to her? Captain, what do we do now? Pete asked. The colonies are expecting us, and we're already behind schedule. Jake thought about it. The right thing to do was to help this woman, whoever she was. But he also had responsibilities to the people waiting for medical supplies. Those supplies could save lives too. We continue to the colonies, Jake decided. But she stays with us until we can figure out where she belongs. We're not dropping her off at some random station where she might not be safe. Sir, that could be risky, Pete warned. We don't know anything about her. She could be dangerous. Look at her, Pete. She's hurt and alone. If she was dangerous, why would she be in a damaged escape pod in the middle of nowhere? Jake replied, everyone deserves help when they need it. The next morning, Jake was in the ship's small kitchen making coffee when he heard movement behind him. He turned around and saw the woman standing in the doorway. She was awake now, and Jake could see that her eyes were a deep blue color. She looked around the room carefully, as if she was trying to understand where she was. "You're awake," Jake said with a smile. "How are you feeling?" The woman stared at him for a moment before answering. "I single quote him ... better. Thank you." Her voice was soft, but there was something about the way she spoke that suggested she was used to people listening to her. "I'm Jake Morrison, captain of this ship. We found you in an escape pod and brought you aboard. You were unconscious for almost a day. I remember the pod," she said quietly, "but everything before that is unclear. I think my ship was attacked." Jake poured her a cup of coffee and offered it to her. "What's your name?" The woman hesitated for a moment, as if she was trying to decide how to answer. "Lisa," she said finally. "My name is Lisa." Jake nodded. "Well, Lisa, you're safe now. We're heading to the outer colonies, but after that, we can try to figure out how to get you home." Lisa looked at Jake with an expression he couldn't quite read. "Home," she repeated softly. "I'm not sure I have one anymore.